Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Black Tower podcast. I am Andrew.
And I'm Aaron.
And we're back for part 2 of the Prophecies of the Dragon, or the Karaethon cycle. So let's go ahead and get the good old spoiler warning out of the way. This episode contains selected portions of several books in the Wheel of Time. If you have not read the entire series, you are in danger of being spoiled.
Yay. Out of the way.
Yay. It's done.
This is the second episode. We are probably going to go into 3. I know we said 2 last week, but I think we're looking at 3 episodes, just because we didn't think we were going to take so long to cover the Karaethon cycle. So hopefully we're going to be able to finish off the cycle this week, and then next week we can talk about dreams, foretellings, men's visions, or viewings. I'm sorry, we're going to get angry tweets.
Yeah, because we've got, after this, we've still got the Alphen answers, the IL prophecies, dark prophecies, the foretellings, the Jendai prophecies, men's viewings, and then the dreams. So like the wolf dream, the wise ones, and Egwene's.
It sounds like a lot, but there's significantly less of each of those than there is of the dragon prophecies or the Karaethon cycles, whichever you want to call them.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. It's the prophecies of the dragon.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, to still give credit where credit is due, this was that idea that was proposed by Twitter user Renegade. His handle is @MidnightWriter with an underscore at the end, capital R in writer. I know you guys are fervently looking for this guy to congratulate him.
Right. This was a great episode idea. I am so happy that he mentioned this and kind of encouraged us to jump in.
Yeah. So speaking of jumping in, let's go ahead and jump in. We're going to pick up here again. We're about halfway down. If you take like the Encyclopedia tWoT website and you go to the Karaethon cycle, we're about halfway down. That's where we're picking up. This says, into the heart he thrust his sword, into the heart to hold their hearts. Who draws it out shall follow after. What hand can grasp that fearful blade? I think we know the sword that's being talked about here.
The sword that's not a sword.
Yes, the sword that cannot be touched, but it was touched.
But it's not a sword. It's actually Sa Angriel, Terangriel.
Yeah. That's a Sa Angriel.
Okay.
Because it's really powerful. Because remember, we talked about how it doesn't really have that limiter on it that you see with a lot of the other Angriel.
A buffer, I think, is the word they use.
Which gets exploited.
Into the heart he thrusts his sword. I think they're talking about the heart of the Stone of Tyr. He's thrusting his sword. Like after he draws Kalendor, Rand uses it and buries it again in the in like the floor, in the heart of Tyr, which is like that middle part of the stronghold. And he does it to hold their he tells everybody he left it there in the stone, protected in such a way that nobody else can take it out, in an effort to bind the people of Tyr to him as the Dragon Reborn, because he wasn't sure that they would follow him without some kind of a reminder that he was the one who drew the sword that couldn't be touched by anybody but the Dragon Reborn.
Yeah, because he makes the comment that as long as it's there, they know he'll return, and as long as they know he'll return, they'll still, at least focus on him rather than trying to plot more for power, which they still do. But he, has, when he returns to Tyr, there's no resistance in his returning. It's not like they decided, we're gonna, we've got this.
Does he actually return to Tyr? I can't. I know I
think he travels back.
He sends one of his Ashaman back to get Kalendor.
Is that what happens? Right. I can't remember right now.
Right before they take Ilion, I think.
Okay. That makes sense.
They're fighting Shanchan in the hills, kind of, and like a guerrilla warfare thing. He's got Davram Bashir and some other Tyrian lords and some Karaethon lords and ladies with him that he wants to keep an eye on, right? And so there's all these Shadchan attacking them, and he has Kalendor because he sent, I can't remember which Ashaman he sent, but he sent somebody back to Tyr, and he told them how to like disassemble his traps that he had woven around it and bring it back for him. And he almost kills everybody with the lightning because he's going mad. He's going nuts. And there's something wrong with the one power at that point. It's like
it's being even more unruly than usual.
Right. It needs to be cleansed.
Yeah, I think you're right about that, actually, yeah. I love how, like, just in the very faint background, you can hear the liquid in the bottle.
Yeah.
I'm so jealous right now. I'll make up for it.
I'll try and keep my alcoholic waste to a minimum so that you're fine. Not jealous.
You're fine. I'll survive somehow.
It's just a beer, man. Nobody freak out. I'm not actually an alcoholic. It's just one beer.
It's more than beer. It's love.
It's liquid love.
Yeah. But yeah, I think we're good on that part. If you want to move us on to the next one,
who draws it out shall follow after.
Yeah, I think that made more sense, like with the Ashaman,
right? Because it's the second person to draw the sword, right?
Yeah,
it's following after Rand. And there seems to be a pattern that we've picked up on. We mentioned it last week, I think, is that the last line or the last phrase in these prophetic stanzas, if you will, is kind of more dressing than actual prophecy. Like, what hand shall grasp that fearful blade? Is that really part of the prophecy, or is it window dressing?
Yeah, I mean, I think that could just be more window dressing, as you say.
All right. Moving on.
Oh, that was Narishma. Jahar Narishma.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah, he was sent to Tyr.
Because he was the only one Rand could trust.
Yeah, and it's even noted here in what I'm looking at that he always remains loyal to Rand.
Yeah. Maybe because he kept him close and gave him something to do, and
I mean,
trusted
him with Kalendor, so
he never left him alone with Tame.
Yeah, which is a blessing.
that bleeding ulcer of a excuse for a man.
Yeah, because he even lets Narishma use Kalendor during when they're cleansing Sa'din.
Yeah, because they need somebody to protect them.
Well, he used it in a circle with Marisa Handel and Elza Pinfo, with Elza mending the flows.
There was something about the fact that they were in a circle together and there was a woman leading the circle. It allowed him to use it without danger of drawing too much power and burning himself out.
Yeah.
Okay. The next part here reads, power of the shadow made human flesh, weakened to turmoil, strife, and ruin. The reborn one, marked and bleeding, dances the sword in dreams and mist, chains the shadow sworn to his will. From the city lost and forsaken, leads the spears to war once more, breaks the spears and makes them see truth long hidden in the ancient dream. He shall slay his people with the sword of peace and destroy them with the leaf.
That's heavy. This whole thing is heavy. We say it after every verse.
Yeah. I feel it like hitting me because everyone is like something bad is going to happen or Rand is going to do something bad, or at least that's what it feels like on the surface. I mean, sometimes when you dig into it, it's not as bad as all that, but That's the way it feels on the surface.
Yeah. Well, I think this is an example of good coming out of what looks like it, might be kind of, there's really nothing like the last part of this really, he talks about slaying his people with the sword of peace. Makes it sound really bad. And he says, the reborn one marked and bleeding and everything that sounds, pretty bad. But ultimately, all of this is good for preparing for Tarmageddon. So, what do you think about that first part? The power of the shadow made human flesh, wakened to turmoil, strife, and ruin.
Well, the way that it's written makes it feel like it's pointing towards the next sentence, which says the reborn one, which would be the dragon reborn, and it seems like it's saying that Rand is the power of the shadow made human flesh, and that he's been spun out at the time of turmoil and strife and ruin.
Yeah, my other thought was, remember whenever Lanfear's talking about her power in the world of dreams. I'm not even gonna try to say the name. It's too long, too many syllables for me. I cannot do it.
Right.
But she says that while she was sealed, that was the only place that she could go, that she still had access to that. So I'm almost thinking that for the chosen, the forsaken that were sealed away, they weren't exactly human flesh then. And that, because we also have to remember what happens with Shadar Haran, basically being like almost an avatar of the Dark One himself. So I think that might be talking about at that time, that the Forsaken have been reborn in a sense, returned to human flesh. And whenever they wake up, the world's already kind of in this bit of turmoil with civil war here, the news of Rand. Of course, most of them are already awakened about meddling around when he's declared as the Dragon Reborn. But at the time that, Shadar Haran is really becoming prominent and everything and is really making his excursions out of Shal Ghul as far as we know, the world is in strife and ruin, I think. So maybe it's talking about the Forsaken.
Yeah, I think that's more likely that it's a disconnected statement that's just been pushed into the same stanza to be all part of the same thought, that it's not directly. It's just the way that it was written makes me think that it's about the next, whoever's in the next sentence, which is Rand.
Yeah.
Which maybe part of that prophecy is always vague, and he does sometimes turn to the shadow. We've been told that before.
True. I could see that one too.
The reborn one, marked and bleeding, is clearly talking about Rand al'Thor, the Dragon Reborn. We talked about already last week. There's a passage talking about how he's marked twice by herons and twice by dragons to mark him for different things. And bleeding, I think, is probably talking about the wound that doesn't ever heal that Padan Fain gives him with the ruby hilted dagger.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think something else to keep in mind is when you read the entire passage, to me, it's fairly clear that it's talking about the episode where he's gone through the glass pillars in Ruhiden, or Ruhiden, I think is more the way it's pronounced. So marked and bleeding, this would be, I think, talking about right after. Not only does he have the hair and marks, but this is going to be like right after he's received the dual dragon tattoos. And then bleeding, I do think the bleeding is in reference to that wound that he got from. Yeah,
because
I don't know why I just like completely
2:30
blanked for a second. But yeah, I mean, because remember whenever he's chased Asmodine into Ruhiden after thwarting the Drakkar attack at the Coldstone Hold. I believe.
Yeah.
No, it's yeah, that's where they were.
Yeah.
Or Cold Rock Hold. That's what it is. And yeah, so he doesn't realize how he's done it, but he travels back to Ruidin and encounters Asmodee there. Well, not travels, he skims,
which is helpful later. People be like, what the heck is the point of skimming when you could travel? It's so you could take. Later, he attacks one of the Forsaken in Karaethon, and he has to like bring a whole group of people with him. So he skims as many people there as he can.
Yeah, I always linked it kind of to the Waygates, because it seems very similar. Like he's surrounded in darkness,
right,
and he's on a stone platform. It just moves. So, they said that the Waygates they figured out from studying like, traveling, that are somehow linked to traveling in the portal stones.
Well-believed fan theory is that skimming is, if not happening in the same like pocket dimension as the Waygates, it's very similar. It's at least Waygate adjacent, or ways adjacent.
Yeah. But yeah, speaking of, skimming and traveling, I think that brings us to the next section where it says, dances the sword in dreams and mist. Because Asmodee, remember, he tries to flee into the world of dreams, and Rand follows him. And then, of course, Ruidin is surrounded in that wall of mist that they fight in as well.
Who were like, wow, these people are here in the flesh, and that's not cool. There's some people who freak out about that. And I think Nynaeve follows him back and figures out how to put herself into the real world. They're fighting in the dream world. Right, so they're like trying to blast each other with balefire in the dream world, and Nynaeve is there like freaking out because she thinks Rand has gone mad because she has no context for what's happening.
Yeah. So I think that's for that part, and then about change the shadow sworn to his will. It's a little bit of I think a misleading comment, knowing what has happened, because he in effect makes it happen by cutting off Asmodee's. He describes them as like the large black cords, and this is protection against the taint on side, and that he gets from the Dark One. So in that way he does, but it's really Lanfear that submits.
Okay, so I'm sorry.
To Rand.
I was talking about a different one of the Forsaken. That whole battle with the balefire and in the dream world is whichever of the Forsaken had taken over the entire nation of Andor, and like. Right, yeah, and he gets balefire.
Oh, that's like Raven.
He doesn't get. You were talking about Asmodee, and I was talking about Raven.
Okay, I was like, I don't remember Nynaeve, but I've also forgotten stuff pretty easily in the past.
Things fade into legend, and legend is
we're straight now.
That's just how it goes.
That's my excuse. That's my excuse from now on. Like, I can't remember. Like, what is this? What is this name you're talking about? That must be from Legend. I don't remember it. Like,
the wheel weaves,
bra. Like, that's not even like a word, bra. Like, the wheel weaves, bra. I'm gonna do that whenever I'm around people that are fans of the series.
I think
like,
I was listening to
the wheel weaves, bra.
Everybody Hates Rand, their podcast, and at one point they were talking about something, and he just went, "The wheel weaves, my bros." I was like, yes. So much yes. Except I'm probably going to use it around somebody who doesn't know, and
That's even funnier because they just think you're going mad.
Crazy.
Like he's been tainted. He's
yeah. So he's chained the Shadow Sworn to his will. I think the only one of the Forsaken that he chained to his will was Asmodine.
Yeah, it's the only one with the aid of Lanfear, because remember she makes the shield that separates Asmodine from the one power, but allows a trickle through, and then she's the one that spreads the rumor to the other chosen that maybe he switched sides and prevents him from running back to the chosen,
right?
Which he wouldn't in his weakened state anyway, because they just kill him.
She does it both because she's playing political games with the other Forsaken, and because she wants the D.
Yeah,
she wants the Lewis Theron D.
Yeah, she wants the dragon and the dragon's dragon.
She'd like to wake the dragon, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. About to be the year of the dragon, yo.
In the City, Lost and Forsaken is a reference to Rudine.
Oh yeah, for sure.
A city that he eventually breaks the spell of mist or dome or whatever that's on the city and releases it back into makes it so people can come. Anybody can come who wants to, right?
Yeah, it's actually at the end of his it's like a consequence of his battle with Asmodine.
Right. He breaks open an underground aquifer too and releases water back into the desert.
Yeah, because he made the comment that, like, upon reflecting, that it was like harder to use the one power here earlier, but once the wall of mist and everything is gone, that's no longer the case.
Right. He leads the spears to war once more. Anytime I see spears, I automatically think AL, just because of their attraction to. They're not the only group. They're not the only armed group that uses spears, but I mean, it's pretty iconic for them. He breaks the spears and makes them see. He's kind of broken there, because we talked about this before. They've got this, like, over how many thousands of years they've gotten this whole twisted kind of culture and theology that twisted away from what they were in the beginning, which I'm pretty sure that the AL and the Tinkers all came from the same people, right? In the beginning, if you look back at the flashbacks that Rand has when he was in Rudine in the first place, you see them, and they're all following the way of the leaf. If that tells you how far the AL have come from their original theology, their original leanings.
Yeah, which makes it even funnier that the IL called the Tinkers the Lost Ones.
Right.
Because if you go through the history that we see through Rand going through the glass pillars, it's actually the IL that are the lost ones. They came from people that disobeyed the way of the leaf and broke from it and were essentially banished from society for it.
Right.
From their society.
In like a theological sense, that's right. But I think in a literal sense, they call the Tinkers the lost ones because, and we're sidetracking here, but they were given a task by the Aes Sedai to protect the leaf cuttings from the Tree of Life and to protect this big shipment of Angreal, Sarangreal, Tarangreal, this objects of power. They were given this charge by Aes Sedai, and after the breaking, and I'm not exactly sure what the charge was, what they were supposed to do, but they failed.
Yeah, but we need to save that for another podcast, because like you said, we're sidetracking. So it goes on, talking about breaking the spears and makes them see the truth long hidden in the ancient dream, which I think is, talking about what he sees going through the glass pillars.
Yeah.
Again,
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like a dream for the people that go through it, right?
Yeah. And it's like you're experiencing memories, the memories of people in your bloodline.
Yeah. And even the IL say that, he's gonna break them and everything, and by basically telling them, hey, way back when you used to not be this way. And then this is the way you used to be, and there's so many of the IL that can't handle that.
Right. The brotherless, is that what they end up being called? Because they all leave their clan, their sept, whatever, and walk away, and most of them end up joining the shadow.
Yeah.
And they call them the brotherless because they have no family, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the last line, slay his people with the sword of peace and destroy them with the leaf, is obviously, I think, destroying them with the leaf is still referencing, him revealing the forbidden knowledge from Ruidin. Or Ruidin. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And slaying his people with a sword of peace, he puts a lot of limits on them whenever he brings them back across the dragon wall.
Right. You can't kill a wetlander unless they're trying to kill you, just as an example. But he does a lot of restrictions on them because they've been pretty open hand. They've been allowed to do whatever they want within the limits of Jito when they were on the other side of the dragon wall in the threefold land. So yeah, and there's more to this passage. I think that's not actually the last line. We split it into two because it was so long. I think that's yours to read.
Oh yeah. So, with his coming are the dread fires born again. The hills burn and the land turns sear. The tides of men run out and the hours dwindle. The wall is pierced and the veil of parting raised. Storms rumble beyond the horizon and the fires of heaven purge the earth. There is no salvation without destruction, no hope this side of death.
There's the prophetic prose that just is doom and gloom that I was waiting for. There is no salvation without destruction. You're all gonna die.
You're all gonna die.
With his coming, the dread fires are born again. The hills burn, the land turns sear. Is it talking about something specific or just in general destruction and war and famine? And there is a period of drought that comes because the Dark One has messed with the weather and it needs to be fixed. That happens. This could be a reference to that. The tides of men run out and the hours dwindle. Anytime where there's an extended period of war and fighting, the population's gonna go down, right? And the end is coming. The last battle is coming closer. I don't know. I mean, is it talking about something specific, do you think?
I can't think of anything specific right off the bat. I haven't seen anything specific. I feel like there's something more to the Dreadfire's Born Again passage.
Yeah, I think it has to be talking about something specific, something with a name, but I don't know what it is, and I can't find a reference to it. So I'm sure somebody is gonna on Twitter or send us an email and let us know what that is, because anytime in the past where we've struggled on something, somebody has spoken up and been like, yeah, this is what's going on. I think that already happened from the episode we released today. That was the first part of this, where somebody was like, yeah, this is what the 3 read out for, or 5 read out, 4 read back. This is what that meant.
Because it's interesting that we see this passage of the Prophecies of the Dragon in the Fires of Heaven. I think for some reason, I can't shake the idea that when it talks about the dread fires, it has something to do with, the chosen that are also called the Dreadlords.
Yeah.
I'm not entirely sure.
Is it talking about there's something about like forges and weapons being forged that are like quenched in the blood of humans? It's all happening in not Shagul, but
Akandar?
yeah, where they're making weapons for Trollocs and Myrddraal.
I like that interpretation of it. That basically the forges have been restarted for the coming war.
Yeah, and it's a very, I don't know, it reminds me of Tolkien. It's a very Tolkien idea that the forges are relit and the darkness is on the land again. And we talked about that in the last passage. The darkness is like over the land. And the next thing it's talking about is the hills are burning and the land is all, it says in the land turns sear, which I think means all the foliage is burned off either by the sun and the drought or by actual fire.
Yeah. Just in a quick look around there, I also saw an interesting thought that it could be with the Dreadfires, and maybe not necessarily the Dreadfires, but more like the fires of heaven, potentially be a reference to Balefire, which the thought continues again to pull from Genesis, from the Christian Bible, talking about the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, destroyed by fire that rained from heavens. But it could also, when it talks about like the hills burn and the land turns sear, because if I remember right, Kareen is on a hill and surrounded by hills, if I'm remembering correctly.
And all the new city is burned, which is all the or
that happens.
Whatever it is that's outside the gates, right?
Yeah,
gets burned.
the outer city, I believe. And then also Rand, Egwene, and Avienda call down lightning on the Shadow when they try to claim Kareen. So that's the best I can make out of it right now. I don't really agree with the potential link to Balefire because it's, other than a name, it's not really associated with fire.
Right.
Other than the way they, like, it seems like fire is just the way they describe what it does because they can't think of anything other than burning a thread backwards in the pattern.
Yeah, it's like a beam of light almost is the way it's described. Yeah, I think that's probably what it is a reference to the forges for the dark weapons and the burning of the land outside of Karaethon.
Yeah.
The tides of men run out, hours dwindle. We talked about that. The wall is pierced and the veil of parting raised. The wall, the dragon wall.
That's what I was thinking.
The ale come over the dragon wall.
Yeah, and they raise their veils again. Because they're coming over to enforce for the dragon.
Well,
essentially,
the way that phrase is written, the veil of parting raised, makes me feel like if you're talking about it, you raising a curtain would mean you were drawing it back. The veil of parting. I'm not sure if that is a reference to the ale, the black veils that they use when they prepare to kill somebody.
Yeah, it could be generic reference to, with the Dragon Wall being what divided the Aiel Waste from the main world, that, most people were able to ignore that and forget that the Aiel pretty much existed.
Right.
So maybe them coming across gets rid of that kind of parting that separates out the two.
Because they're always saying, we're here because we're being punished because we failed the Aes Sedai.
Yeah.
So it's like once Rand comes back and is proclaimed the Karaethon, he raises the veil of parting. He brings them back into the world with all the other people, and they all have to play nice somehow.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Storms rumble beyond the horizon, and fires of heaven purge the earth. What does
that could be referencing, calling down lightning that sets, the earth, wherever it hits, ablaze for the most part.
Storms. There's a whole thing with the weather and the storms that Nynaeve feels storms that are always coming but never get there because the weather's all messed up. And
yeah, well, I always took her like feeling some of the storms that she feels is her like basically sensing that something bad is coming.
Yeah, it's like a sense of foreboding.
Yeah, it's almost like that feeling that you're being watched but not knowing where from. For her, she can feel that something bad is coming but doesn't know what it is, which for all we know could be like a lost talent.
Right, and not even connected to the one power.
Yeah.
Like Min's viewings or Perrin's golden
bond
eyes
with the wolves or connection with the wolves.
Yeah. There is no salvation without destruction. No hope this side of death. I think
that's more flair.
Yeah. It's also kind of depressing.
Yeah, I think it just like drives home the dire situation the world is in at that point. Like basically, like you can't hope to save yourselves by just sitting back and doing nothing. Things are going to have to be broken. Wars are going to have to be waged. People are going to have to die. And it's only after your deaths or death is conquered, I guess, if you want to pull a more like almost Christian-esque aspect of it.
Right.
Flashing way forward whenever Rand kind of cheats death in a sense.
Speaking of broken, the unstained tower, broken, bends knee to the forgotten sign. The seas rage and storm clouds gather unseen. Beyond the horizon, hidden fires swell and serpents nestle in the bosom. That was exalted is cast down. What was cast down is raised up. Order burns to clear its path. Order burns to clear his path.
Yeah. So I think we all know what the unstained tower broken is referring to.
The breaking of the White Tower. That's what that is.
Yes.
Thank you, Elida, for fucking up the White Tower.
Good job, asshat. Man, I never liked her from the first time like you meet her.
The hard thing is I don't think she's actually a dark friend. She's just
she's a red.
Dumb.
So. She's a red.
But not all the reds are bad.
Yeah, but they're not all bad. But I mean, they like most of the reds that you meet kind of have that kind of almost holier than thou sentiment.
Well, yeah, they're on like a righteous crusade, right? They're
like the Aes Sedai version of the White Cloaks, almost.
Right, they're Templars in the Holy Land. God wills it.
Yeah.
All men are evil and must die. All men who can channel are evil and must die.
I mean, most of them don't care for men, period.
It's a thin line. Well, I think you can only villainize men who can channel for so long without thinking badly about all men.
Well, yeah, I mean, and we see the ill effects of it. There's Browns in the tower that think that this systematic gentling of men that can channel has resulted in overall lower numbers and weaker female channelers. Right,
and in cultures where that's doesn't happen, you see higher than expected numbers of people who can channel. Like the AL have more than expected. The Sea Folk.
Yeah, the Shan-Chan.
And they still do kind of control or get rid of their men who can channel, but there's not a systematic hunting down like there is in the kind of the main population. The unstained tower broken bends knee to the forgotten sign. Are they talking about at Dumais Wells where the Rand is, his one of his famous lines is kneel or be knelt? He makes all the captured Aes Sedai kneel down and swear allegiance to him.
I can't think of another good instance that fits with the prophecy, to be honest with you.
Well, there's a couple of times that Aes Sedai kneel to him and swear allegiance. That's just the first one, right? And it was the most shocking. Yeah. And it still is a little controversial. People talk about it. It's just kind of, he forces them to kneel or be knelt and swear to him. And maybe it's because he had read the prophecies. Maybe it's just because he was pissed. I don't know. I mean, he was kind of in an unstable state of mind.
Yeah. Well, that happens after his captivity, doesn't it?
Yeah. Dumais Wells is after he's been held captive in a box, and they bring him out every day to torture him. And
so he's super jaded against the White Tower, because he doesn't see it as just the Reds doing it. He sees it as the Aes Sedai, the White Tower, is trying to force their puppet strings on me, and I will not do it.
Right. And after that, he's, he goes through a whole period of time where he won't trust anybody who is an Aes Sedai. He's
extraordinarily cold after that whole episode, which I can't necessarily blame him for.
Right. And the Lewis Theron in his head is not helping matters either. It's kind of egging him on and saying, don't trust anybody, kill everybody who can channel, kill them all. Kill everybody.
I should have just sat there and looked at Lewis and be like, motherfucker, isn't this what got you like suicidal in the first place? Just killing everybody.
This is why you killed your family.
Look, man, we need to have a talk, all right?
Yeah. Rand discovers at some point that there's a way to shut up Lewis Theron, and it's to remind him that he killed his wife.
Yeah. But so it talks about the seas rage and storm clouds gather unseen.
The weather's broken.
Yeah. And I think it could also be like a kind of haul to what Nynaeve senses. There's something coming, so it feels like a storm's coming, but you can't see the cloud.
Right. Her sense is telling her it should be raining, it should be snowing, there should be a storm happening, but there isn't.
All hell should be breaking loose.
Right. Beyond the horizon, hidden fires swell and serpents nestle in the bosom.
I think that's got to be talking about Shao Ghul preparing for war.
Yeah. And he's collecting.
Or preparing more for war.
Serpents are, unless it's talking about something specific in this place, which I don't think it is, serpents are kind of an iconography. I don't know if I'm using that word right. Whatever. They're a symbol of evil things. And that's also a kind of a callback to the Judeo-Christian biblical interpretation of the Old Testament, is that serpents are evil. The devil is a serpent.
Yeah. What was exalted is cast down, and what was cast down is raised up. I think it's just talking about like a generic change in the order of things. Yeah. That what used to be the pinnacle may not necessarily be anymore, and the things that were frowned upon, like obvious example, male channelers, are now raised up to a level of prominence.
And it's also kind of a boilerplate prophetic statement. We see stuff like that in prophecies all the time. Yeah. Prophecies even that are written in the real world. So it's kind of easy to put it in there and have it be true at some point.
Yeah. And I think the last line, order burns to clear his path, it's flavor too, but I think it's also hallmarking to the fact that the path that he needs to take, like everything that's hindering him will be dealt away, done away with, because there's never before been like a man that puts a woman in the sun throne or the rose throne. And ultimately Elaine doesn't let him put her there.
Even though he tries.
Yeah.
But poor guy. He tried. He was just, he doesn't understand. He doesn't get women. Apparent in that they understand women, but Rand doesn't.
They understand Rand better, but which of us really understand the other gender?
Not me.
Women are far better at understanding men than men are understanding women, to be fair.
That's probably true.
I think it's
To be fair, men, there's not much to us. We're pretty one
yeah.
sided.
Yeah. So on to the next section. There can be no health in us, nor any good thing grow. For the land is one with the dragon reborn, and he is one with the land. Soul of fire, heart of stone, in pride he conquers, forcing the proud to yield. He calls upon the mountains to kneel, and the seas to give way, and the very skies to bow. Pray that the heart of stone remembers tears, and the soul of fire love. That's a huge pack that I don't think could be more centered on Rand al'Thor.
Right.
If you try.
Well, and the Karaethon cycle is the prophecies of the dragon. We're going to find most of these are about him.
Yeah. I mean, the first part I think is talking about, there's consistent plagues. People are sick across the entire world. And, they have all the weevils in the grain and the foods, and crops aren't growing.
Right. Even from the beginning, they're talking about the produce looks smaller and shriveled more so than it normally would. And it gets progressively worse as the Dark One exerts more influence.
What I want to do is I want to skip over the next line where it talks about the lamb being one with the dragon reborn, and go through the rest of it for the idea that I'm thinking about. Go back to that line.
Go for it.
So talking about, skipping that line, going on to the soul of fire, heart of stone, in pride he conquers, forcing the proud to yield. We've already talked about in the last passage how Rand has become, he was already getting kind of cold and I'll just do what needs to be done, but he's extremely cold and unfeeling and hard.
Yeah.
Because during this time, he's seen all these women, the Fardaris May and everything that have died, and he's, remembering their names and is rolling through his head, and he's got this impressively long list that he's memorized. And it's just, he uses that as fuel to steel himself against emotion. And he goes forth and conquers because he's like, I'm the dragon reborn. I can do it. Like, no one can stop me. This is mine. And he gets into this really prideful, hubris, arrogant section of his life, where he doesn't care who he's talking to. I mean, well before this episode happens, we've already seen that he's made Moraine kneel to him by taking an oath, which she does gladly. Well, not gladly, but to stay close to him. And he's doing this with the Aes Sedai, known to be very proud of who they are, forcing them to bend the knee. Here you go. I know someone's going to love that reference.
We do not kneel. Even he gets to be so cold and heartless, and what he thinks of as strong or hard, he thinks they're the same thing. And we see there's, I can't remember what book it's in, but I think it's Cadsuane mentions to somebody else, to another Aes Sedai, I believe it's probably Varen. She mentions that he's hard, and what's hard breaks, and what he needs to be is strong and not hard. And it's just
I think she talks about steel.
Yeah, it's a symptom of the fact that he's become too hard and too heartless.
Yeah. I think when it's talking about like the next line, talking about calling the mountains to kneel, the seas give way. I obviously don't think that's literal. I think it's more just like, this is how prideful and arrogant the dragon will get. That he thinks that he can make the mountains kneel and the seas part and this very sky itself bow to his will.
Yeah, or that he can make nations kneel to him and nature give way. I mean, it's kind of a broad statement, but it does speak to his character, where he's kind of one by one forcing the nations to kneel to him, like one nation at a time. The only reason he didn't do it with Andor is because he was in love with the daughter heir.
Yeah,
If he hadn't been in love with Elaine and wanting to make sure that she still loved him and he didn't screw it up, he would have conquered Andor too in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. Let me go on. It says, "Pray that the heart of stone remembers tears and the soul of fire love." It's definitely saying, the dragon is going to get this way, but it's not going to be the way he needs. That if he can't remember to feel, he's not going to be, just like you were talking about with what Pt2 said. He's going to be too brittle, too easily broken if he just stays hard and resilient to his emotions.
Yeah, it's like
he needs to be human.
He's exposing himself to his emotions over and over and over in order to harden himself against them so he doesn't feel them, because that's what he thinks he needs.
Yeah. So with that, jumping back to the second line that we skipped over, "For the land is one with the dragon reborn, and he is one with the land." I think that there's almost a literal connection between the state of the dragon reborn and the state of the land, because when he's standing off from everybody, whenever he's cold and trying to be emotionless, everything's going to shit. The weather is going even more to shit. Crops aren't surviving at all. Even stored food is infested with bugs. But when they break him kind of out of this just cold-hearted mentality, things, they don't get better completely, but things aren't as bad. So they've been able to use the bowl of winds at this point to kind of fix the weather to a degree, at least. And the foods, crops start growing a little bit, and they don't find, food doesn't spoil, and what ultimately came, it seemed like almost a matter of, minutes, hours, if not minutes. So I think the prophecy might be saying that there's almost a literal connection.
Well, and we saw with the first dragon, Louis Theron, after he kills, the prologue to the Eye of the World, he's literally connected with the land. The land is one with the dragon, would be also a true statement, because he like teleports himself out to where Dragon Mount is now, but it was a flat piece of land next to a river, and he like detonated himself and created this mountain. And I think it's kind of a 2-part statement, and that's the first, or the first part in the sense that it happened first, right?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. But I think that brings us to the next section here.
And it says, "As the plow breaks the earth, shall he break the lives of men, and all that was shall be consumed in the fire of his eyes. The trumpets of war shall sound at his footsteps, the ravens feed at his voice, and he shall wear a crown of swords."
So I get the first part of that is like kind of rehashing flavor prophecy.
Right. Well, it is. And it's also, we see people's lives being upended, people who are married just kind of leaving their wives and walking out the door and going someplace else because they feel like they need to.
This place is shit. I need a new home.
Yeah, I need a new location. We see that with a lot of people, and it kind of gets glossed over, but it's just mentioned by different characters and their different point of views, as they'll be seeing refugees, and they'll be like, these are people who are displaced because of Rand and his effect on the world, and it's because their lives are broken and they're just wandering now.
Yeah.
And all that was shall be consumed in the fire of his eyes. He's got a lot of hate.
Oh yeah,
he's got a lot of hatred going on. He hates Aes Sedai. He hates the Dark One. He hates evil. He hates Ben Fane. He hates all these. He hates.
He even hates himself.
He hates himself because he gets all these people killed. He feels like they die because of him instead of they feel like they're dying for him.
Yeah, because he's still stuck in that mindset that when it talks about his blood shall stain the rocks of Shao Gul, he's like, you know what? The sooner I die, the sooner the Dark One's dealt with, and all of this can stop.
Yeah. And the sooner it all stops, the more of my loved ones are going to stay safe. That's his mindset. Yeah. The trumpets of war shall sound at his footsteps. Everywhere he goes, there's war following him. He's literally taking an army with him everywhere until there's a point in the series where he kind of sets everything in motion, and then he takes some time to figure some other stuff out. He grabs Min and he like teleports to a bunch of different places, so people think he doesn't teleport, he travels. Sorry. My inner Star Trek nerd came out for a second. But he's traveling everywhere, and then he grabs some other people and he goes to another place, and he has to deal with some of the Ashaman who are loyal to Mazrim Tame and not to him. So he's not always traveling with the army, but everywhere he goes, there's conflict and war and death everywhere. The trumpets of war. Ravens are typically associated with battlefield feeding their carrion feeders. They eat dead flesh. Ravens feed at his voice. Everywhere he goes, everywhere his voice is heard, there's war and death. And he shall wear a crown of swords, I think is a crown of swords. Very literal. That's a literal one, but that's the crown of Ilion.
Yeah. Formerly known as the Laurel Crown.
Right. But once he gets a hold of it, he looks at it and there's little swords in it. And he goes, oh, this is what that prophecy meant that I read all that time back in Tyr about the crown of swords. He's like, oh, go figure. It's one of those that happens just by his actions, right? Some of these he makes happen. We talked about that before. Some of them he makes happen because he read them in the prophecies. So he's like, they have to happen. They're going to happen on my terms. Some of them, they just happen because he is the dragon and they're prophecies.
Yeah, I definitely would agree with that.
Should we just move on?
I think so.
All right.
Yeah. So Master of the Lightnings, rider on the storm, wearer of a crown of swords, spinner out of fate, who thinks he turns the wheel of time, may he learn the truth too late.
That one rhymed.
Or may learn the truth too late, rather. Yeah, it did. So I guess he kind of gets to this point, he's defeated Samuel. He's got the crown, the crown of Ilion on. He's taken over Ilion now. And he's kind of in this mentality that he's the one pushing fate around.
Well, he's been told for how many years now, right? Like almost 2 years, that he's ta'veren and that the wheel of fate spins threads around his life to mold either to his will or to his destiny.
Yeah.
So how can you not think that?
Think this? Yeah. And I think this is calling to the thing, like he has to realize that he doesn't push, the time forward. He doesn't turn the wheel of time, that it's the other way around, that the wheel propels him to his fate. And Moraine was famous for reminding him, hey, you might affect the pattern, but whether you want to do it or not, the wheel is going to push your thread to your destiny.
The wheel weaves, my bra.
The wheel weaves, brah.
Brah. Let's go drink some protein shakes, brah.
Brah.
Did I read that one or did you?
I did.
The seals that hold back the night shall weaken, and in the heart of winter shall winter's heart be born. Amid the wailings of a lamentation and the gnashing of teeth, for winter's heart shall ride a black horse, and the name of it is death. Somebody copied and pasted on this one.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure I read that in the book of Revelation.
Yeah. I don't know
not
about
word
the
for
winter's
word,
heart part,
not word
but
for word, but
yeah.
the black horse and the rider's name is Death.
I
Is
mean,
lifted.
it's also even because like there's the parallel for the seals, right? There's the 7 seals on the Dark One's prison. And
Yeah.
in Revelations, there's the 7 seals that are broken.
Yeah, there's 7 seals and 7 bowls and 7 lampstands and 7 stars. There's a
7
lot
of
of
everything.
sevens in the Book of Revelation.
It's even funny when you look at like the gambling machine. What's it called? Where you just pull the lever
Yeah,
and
a
like
slot
the old
machine.
timey the slot machine and the old
It
timey
goes
winning
ding,
numbers
ding,
was
ding,
seven
ding,
seven
ding,
seven.
and some little cherries.
Yeah,
The seals, they're clearly talking about the seals on the Dark One's prison. The seals that on the board that Louis Theron put there and his male channelers in the Age of Legends. And the seals that hold back the night shall weaken. And we see that physically in the different crenular that are the representation of the seals on the prison start to weaken to the point where they can be broken or scraped. Is how they test them. They kind of scrape them with a knife, and if little pieces fall off, then they know that seal is weak enough to break if they were to break it.
yeah.
In the heart of winter shall winter's heart be born. I think it's clearly, well, not clearly, but it's a reference to Perrin and the Perrin fail story.
I'd agree with that.
The heart of winter. Once the ladies, Nynaeve and Avienda and Elaine and all of the Windfinders fix the weather with the Bowl of Winds, winter comes back in full force and kind of with a vengeance and buries everything. So everybody's kind of marching, and it's funny, a lot of the different armies were marching without tents because tents slow you down, and they're like, the weather's so great, why would we need tents? No, it's never going to rain or snow again. And they all got caught kind of
You were wrong
by winter unawares. But in the heart of winter, so I think it's talking about that literal winter that comes back after the weather is fixed, shall winter's heart be born. And I think that's talking about how Perrin has to become hard and become strong and become this like unfeeling machine in order to track down the Shido and get back his wife.
Yeah, because that's what we see him like. He fully embraces like his role,
right? And he talks about he's forging a hammer. He keeps talking about he's forging a hammer, and he's not talking about the literal hammer that he forges later. He's talking about his heart. He has to forge his heart into a hammer so that he can destroy the Shido and get back his wife and the other people who were taken, obviously. But we know it's about Fael.
Yeah.
Amid the wailings and lamentation and the gnashing of teeth, for winter's heart shall ride a black horse, and the name of it is Death. I think that's more references to Perrin and just how much death he rains down when he does finally get to unleash.
Yeah, I think you're right about that.
I mean, I could be wrong. I mean, clearly I've been wrong before.
Yeah.
Nobody tell my wife that I said that.
I think she'll hear it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure that's talking about Perrin.
Yeah.
I can't remember if the horse he rides is black.
Yeah, so I can't remember right now either.
It could just be prophetic window
like
dressing. Yeah, flavor we're calling it.
That's kind of how I read the last of it, because I mean the winter is, nobody was prepared. It's still exceptionally hard. And there's a lot of people that die just because of the weather.
Yeah.
So, but we'll keep moving on here. And it shall come to pass in the days when the dark hunt rides, when the right hand falters and the left hand strays, that mankind shall come to the crossroads of twilight, and all that is, all that was, and all that will be shall balance on the point of a sword while the winds of the shadow grow.
The Dark Hunt, I think, is another reference to the Perrin storyline and the Shadow Hounds, right? And that's actually where I am right now in my read through. Perrin's tracking down the Shadow, and he's discovered that there's this giant pack of Shadow Hounds that have been running around their camp, outside of their camp.
Mm-hmm.
And they call it the Wild Hunt in the books. Like the people, when they're talking to each other, they call it the Wild Hunt. But I think the Dark Hunt is talking about Perrin and those dark hounds.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Do you have any insight on the rest of that? Because I'm lost.
Let's see what I can think of. I think that the rest of the text is talking about how it's a very precarious time in the path of the prophecy in the Corinthian cycle and the life of the dragon and the assorted important other chess pieces, that they're kind of standing on a precipice, that this is the point where it's most vulnerable for the light to fail.
Right.
Because it's literally saying everything is balanced on the point of a sword.
Right. The quest is balanced on the edge of a knife.
Yeah.
Young Master Baggins.
Yeah. It says, while the winds of the shadow grows, I think it's saying that this is the point where the forces of light are the most vulnerable. And it's also the point where the shadow is like redoubling its efforts to push things in the direction in favor of the dark one.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the best I can make out of it. I can't think of any.
Like everything's kind of floundering, especially in the absence of direct supervision from Rand. Everything's kind of floundering because he was the thing that was holding everything together. So he put everything in motion and then took off.
Yeah.
To do his own thing.
We have a lot going on in this one because in the actual book, Crossroads of Twilight, like you've already talked about Perrin attempting to rescue Fail. It's the same time he gets approached with like a possible alliance with the Shanshan.
Right.
Even if it's only temporary.
And he's not doing what he was supposed to be. He's sidetracked, right? He's not doing what Rand sent him to do. He was supposed to go collect the prophet. He was supposed to collect Massima and bring him to Rand so that he could straighten him out.
Yeah.
Because he was kind of he's been running roughshod over the whole country, claiming to speak for the dragon when he doesn't.
Yeah.
Because that's what he's supposed to be doing, but his wife gets kidnapped and all this other shit happens and he's sidetracked now.
Yeah. I mean, and then we also see Matt is captive in the Shanshan controlled territory, and he's trying to escape, but he's also courting tWoT, the daughter of the Nine Moons.
Oh yeah, wow. Courting. We'll use courting loosely.
Yeah. And then there's also Elaine's working on solidifying her hold on the Lion Throne of Andor.
Right. Everybody's kind of taking the season off to do their own stuff.
Yeah, but it's a real tipping point because the things they're doing independently, all as we see in the series, need to happen for things to go the way the light needs them to go.
Right.
Because without the Shanshan, they're at a huge disadvantage and very likely would have lost the last battle. Because Matt comes out of this as the leader of the entire Shanshan military.
Right. Yeah, it's the Matt and tWoT relationship that binds this Shanshan to the dragon.
And then they have that kind of a pairing with Perrin, who, essentially after this point, the Shadow IL are largely irrelevant. Elaine is able to bring Andor into the fold fully, to bring the Andorian military into a place where it needs to be. And
she did it all well. She did it all while pregnant.
Yeah.
Let's just say.
And then, kind of towards the end, is whenever Egwene starts leading the rebel Aes Sedai, and continuing their siege of Tar Valon. And at the end, of course, she gets captured by the White Tower, which is where we become thankful of her treatment by the wise ones,
right?
Because it makes her able to withstand the punishments.
So, just as everybody else has faltered, we've struggled off topic. Let's get back on with the next statement here. It says,
that was still kind of on topic.
Oh, well, yeah, we were on topic, but we were kind of faltering.
I got you.
He shall heal the wounds of madness and cutting of hope.
You know what that is?
Well, yeah, he cleanses the taint, the dark one's taint. We should have a running counter of how many times we've had to say the word taint.
He bleaches the taint.
Bleached taint.
Bleach gets rid of every taint.
Oh, gross.
It just sounds like it burns.
Crunchy.
Ew. What the hell is crunchy on a taint?
He shall heal the wounds of madness. He cleanses the taint on the male half of the power.
One-sided.
He needs
with
the help of Nynaeve to do it. But
rather.
Yeah, he uses the help of Nynaeve, and there's a lot of people watching his back when it happens because they're kind of hopeless and helpless when it's happening.
And an enormous beacon for the Shadow.
Oh yeah,
they're using the Terror Ongrel that are links to the two big statues, Saw Ongrel.
Right, they're using the control statues to channel more power than anybody ever has before since the breaking.
Yeah. I mean, it's insane. And I think it actually... Does it only melt the male statue, or does it melt them both?
It only melts the female statue.
Okay.
Right? As far as I know.
The control one, I think.
The control statues are gone. Yeah. They're done. They only get used once. But the actual physical statue that's buried on one of the Sea Folk islands is melted, and actually I think a lot of the Sea Folk die because of it on that island. So. They're really pissed about it. But I think the male statue is still there. He just doesn't have a control statue for it anymore, I think.
Yeah.
It's another one where I might be wrong, but that's the way I think it's left.
I think that sounds right.
The cutting of hope, I think, is just flavor talking about hope had been cut and lost when the male half was tainted in the first place.
Yeah.
He heals the wounds of madness and the cutting of hope. He shall hold a blade of light in his hands, and the three shall be one. Yeah. He always kind of, because the first weapon he ever had was, I'm going to say the first real weapon of war that he ever holds is a sword, right? Because he knows the quarterstaff and he knows the Two Rivers bow. The first weapon of war he ever holds is that sword that his dad, his adopted father, gives him. And so anytime he needs a weapon, he kind of creates one out of the one power. He channels a blade of light. And that's kind of one of his signature things. And three shall be one.
Yeah, I interpret that differently.
What do you think it means?
So, but it kind of, I want you to say your thoughts on the three shall become one, because it ties in with that. And I don't want to alter your train of thought, because I really do want to hear what you have to say.
He shall hold a blade of light in his hands, I do believe it's talking about his kind of power wrought blade that he always whips out anytime he needs it. The 3 shall be 1. 3 always makes me think of his different lovers. Is Avienda, Elaine, and Min.
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 Sorry, I'm a child.
Which sounds, I mean, come on, Robert Jordan. Really, the names with the names? He made the one female character who dresses a little different and her sexuality is a little different. He made her name a letter away from man.
Yeah.
Really step up your game.
Yeah. So here's
What do
how
you
I
think?
here's how I think about the whole thing. So initially, Min and Karaethon, they're talking about this passage from the Karaethon cycle. And they kind of initially have this idea that it means that Rand has to be linked with 2 other women and that their powers combine, and that's needed for the last battle. However, I'm of the thought that it's not talking about 3 actual people. It's talking about the method that Rand uses closing the hole in the Dark One's prison. Because he is linked with women. He does have access to Sidair. Because, when a man's in the link, he can control the flows.
Right.
And take over the flows. Because there's a part where Lewis Staring is mumbling around in his mind, and he says, talking about the ceiling on the Dark One's prison, he says, "We touched it to him. Something has to touch him." Meaning that for the bore to be closed, something has to touch the Dark One. And we can reasonably believe that Sidair and Sidin can't necessarily do that, or at least not very easily. So I think when it talks about the 3 become 1, it's talking about a mixture of Sidair, Sidin, and the true power.
Which is the Dark One's power.
Yeah, well, it's the original power that gives rise to the one power.
Right.
And we see Rand pulling the true power when he's fighting Moradin in Shao Ghul at the Dark One's prison. So I think that bore, the plug in the bore, has to be made from those 3, and he melts the weaves together to fix it. And at the same time, he's holding Kalendor. And I think that's the blade of light, because when he channels, it shines brightly.
True. Yeah, it's true.
So that's the way I think about it, that it has to be him using Kalendor to pull as much of the power as he does, with the link, with at least one female channeler, and melding all 3 flows, all 3 power sources, if you will, to make that bore. So that's the way I read it. Like when I read it the first time, I was the same way. Like I was like, okay, well, yeah, he makes the flame sword, and he's gonna have obviously Elaine and Avienda, and somehow Min's gonna come in and help, and they'll all be linked together, fighting together somehow. Like I was like, I don't know. But what broke me, that was like, how is Min gonna link when she can't use the one power?
Well, okay, I do think you're right.
Talks about the bond.
I think your theory is right here. I think you're reading it better than I did. But yeah, Min does get bonded and does have some kind of control over this bond with Rand because of something that Elaine did when she bonded Rand as a warder, right? So she bonds Rand, but she does it in conjunction with Min and Avienda, and so the 3 of them are all bonded to Rand, which is only made more confusing by the fact that she's already bonded to Brigitte, and Rand is also bonded to another Aes Sedai already. It's all a confusing mess. It messes with their.
It's kind of funny too.
It messes with their feelings sometimes, and that they have to feel what everybody else is feeling,
and that could be a bit of a double meaning here for the 3 shall be 1.
Well, I think it's one of these that he wrote in a way that automatically makes you think of one thing, but it makes you think of the wrong thing, so that you're surprised when when it happens for real. So I think
RJ, you clever dog.
you clever bastard. I think he purposely evokes that image of the power wrought sword and that image of the 3 girlfriends. Like he's using suggestive languages, like when you say certain words or you wear certain things to make people automatically think of a certain color or a number.
Oh yeah,
or
that
whatever.
magician's trick.
Yeah, that magician's. Like I think he's doing that with this. He's using specific words to make us think of one thing when he really means something else.
Let's see. Hit us with that next part. Let's move on.
He shall bind the 9 moons to serve him. The north shall he tie to the east, and the west shall be bound to the south.
We have to unite. Together we stand.
Right. I think it's a strange thing to say the north to the east and the west to the south. I think there's some specific map stuff going on there, and I haven't studied the maps well enough to know exactly what he's talking about. But I mean, typically, if you wanted to say that everything should be connected together, you would say the east to the west and the north to the south, right? That's what we would typically say.
It'd be like a reference to it's like an abnormal sort of binding. That is an abnormal circumstance that binds the entire world together.
Right. He shall bind the 9 moons to serve him. I think he's talking about tWoT, right? That's,
yeah.
I mean, you can't be more plain than that. The daughter of the 9 moons.
Because he does it in a weird way. Because remember, he kneels to the crystal throne,
right, to fulfill their prophecy. Even though that's not really in the dragon prophecies.
Yeah, but tWoT essentially follows what Matt, wants her to do, and Matt, by virtue of being tWoT and his childhood friendship with Rand, is bonded to Rand.
Right.
So by his bond to Matt, he has roundabout unintentionally, and something he didn't do himself, bound tWoT to him.
Well, here's a question, and it's a question for you, and if our listeners want to chime in, I really am curious. But there's a certain point in the books where both Matt and Perrin, and then also Rand, all 3 of them start having flashes of color.
Oh yeah.
Whenever they have strong emotions, or like when Rand is cleansing the taint. There it is again. 3rd time. When
he's
Rand
using wet wipes.
When he's cleansing, Perrin and Matt both separately have this kind of flash of him, a vision of him in their heads, and they see colors when it happens. And I don't think that was happening before Rand was bonded to Min, and I mean also Elaine and Avienda. But I think the important part is that Min always said that her viewings had flashes of color that went along with them that meant different things. And I think after, I could be completely wrong here, but I think after Rand got bonded to Min, they all 3 of them started having flashes of color along with their emotions, or if somebody else was having an emotion, which makes me kind of think that they're all kind of having this strange bond to each other. And we've seen that they all kind of are drawn to each other sometimes. And when Matt needs to go find Rand, he knows where to go. Or when Perrin needs to go find Rand, he knows where to go. And it's like there's this, they were never bonded, right? They never wove a bond together, but
I think they also, even in the series, comment on how long it's been since they've seen each other, and that when they get around each other, the flashes pretty much stop. So it might be the pattern saying you need to be together, you need to be together. Like right now, you need to be together.
Right.
Get there.
Let's move on. We're almost to the end here.
Yeah. So twice dawns the day when his blood is shed. Once for mourning, like mourning.
Right. Not morning, like when the sun comes up.
Yeah. So once for mourning, once for birth. red on black, the dragon's blood stains the rock of Shalgul, and the pit of doom shall his blood free men from the shadow.
Twice dawns the day when his blood is shed. He's cut with the ruby dagger twice.
Yes. True.
I mean, there's also talking about blood on the rocks of Shalgul here, which he was really concerned about the whole series. That's one of those.
We've come to learn that it says his blood on the rocks of Shalgul, but it doesn't necessarily say he has to die.
Right.
Which he figures out in the end.
Once for mourning, once for birth. I think twice dawns the day. It's talking about 2 different days that his blood has to be shed. Once for when somebody's gonna die.
Yeah.
And once somebody's gonna be born. I mean, he does switch bodies.
Yeah.
That could be a type of birth or rebirth.
Yeah.
The babies are born at some point. I've not read into that part yet, and it's not really important enough for me to have found it in the spoilers. So I don't know if there's some of that going on in this passage.
Yeah, I think it might be because ultimately they recover the body of Rand al'Thor, who we know is actually now the deceased body of Moradin,
right?
At this point, and they have this huge grieving funeral for it, and the only people that don't really seem like they're terribly upset are Min, Avienda, and Elaine, and they stalk off and meet up with this guy and ride off into the sunset. So it could be for the mourning because the world believes the dragon is dead. So I think that maybe that's it. And once for birth, meaning him being pseudo born again in Moradin's body, which made me happy because he got his right hand back.
Right.
It's not his, but it is.
It is now. It's new to him.
Yeah. Still got that new body smell.
Yeah. In the pit of doom shall his blood free men from the shadow. The last battle is freeing men from the influence of the Dark One for now, for this time around.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think that's pretty straightforward, I believe.
Yeah. His blood on the rocks of Shalgul, washing away the shadow, sacrifice for man's salvation. It's more of the same that we were just talking about. It's just a different passage. He shall break chains and put others into chains.
Mm-hmm. There's some that are freed, and others that, are like bound to service.
Right. Some that are freed from the chains of their societal constructs.
Yeah. He frees channelers from their fate.
Yeah,
for the most.
He does. And I'm saying there's a bunch of different ways that is fulfilled. He puts others into chains. He definitely, the Forsaken their plans are all messed up here.
Oh yeah.
At the end, whatever of the Forsaken are left, they're screwed.
Yeah. So second to last section here. Fortune rides the sun on high, with the fox that makes the ravens fly. Luck his soul, the lightning his eye. He snatches the moons from out of the sky. Another rhyming one.
Another rhyming one. Yeah. This one is all kinds of hidden meanings. I think it's not an obvious one, right?
Yeah. Not at first. I don't think it is.
Fortune rides like the sun on high is Matt, I think.
For sure. I think it's talking about how his fortune is that it's the tippy top of the world.
Right. It's Matt has such good luck that at some point the different characters there's a common phrase that people use in the universe. They talk about the Dark One's own luck. The different characters. I just read Elaine was talking to herself, and she said something about she would have to have Matt's own luck. And I was like,
That's funny.
His
That's
luck
funny.
has become so legendary, even amongst his own friends, that they've changed the phrase now. That they're not talking about the Dark One's own luck anymore. They're talking about Matt's luck. It's even more legendary than the Dark One, at least amongst his friends. The fox that makes the ravens fly.
I think it's Matt again. He's got the fox head medallion.
He's got his signet ring.
Yeah.
He's got foxes on it.
Yeah, and then his staff that's got ravens on it. And he twirls that bitch around.
Mm-hmm.
They're flying around, man.
And, he was in with the fox people, right? At some point. Luck, his soul, the lightning, his eye. Is another mention of his luck. He lost an eye, right?
Yeah.
He snatches the moons from out of the sky. He kidnaps the daughter of the 9 moons. I mean, that's pretty...
Yeah. I don't know why I'm laughing at that, but yeah.
Well, I don't know. I think maybe it's karma for what Tylan did to him the last, 2 books.
And what was the karma against, tWoT, though? I mean, other than, her imprisoning him, but...
Oh, no. Karma's a bitch.
Yeah, maybe it's one of those things that, an Outlander has married, the daughter of the 9 moons, and they're like, what? I'm sure some people in the Sean Chan Society would see it as a theft, at least of sorts.
Right. I mean, he did kidnap her. He grabbed her because he was like this. Somebody called her the daughter of the 9 moons, and he was like, "Oh shit. She's coming with us, guys. This is gonna be my wife."
The prophecy fulfilled.
Right. This skinny little girl. When we all know he prefers plump, willing tavern wenches.
Oh yeah.
When the Wolf King carries the hammer, thus are the final days known. When the fox marries the raven, and the trumpets of battle are blown. The Wolf King is, as Perrin, right?
That's got it, yeah. I mean, because he's got the hammer.
Well, he carries the
second hammer.
He carries the axe for so long, right?
Yeah.
And at some point, he switches from the axe to the power wrought hammer that he creates with the help of some Aes Sedai.
Well, before that, he had the regular blacksmith's hammer that he got from his time in Tyr.
That was just a symbolic struggle. It was kind of a way to bring the reader back into this struggle and remind him that all he really wanted was to be a blacksmith.
Yeah, but in the end, isn't his power wrought one? Isn't the back like an axe blade? Am I remembering that wrong?
Well, it's kind of a Warhammer thing to have a spike on the back end of your hammer.
Okay.
So there's kind of, if you were to go, I've seen every episode except the newest season of Forged in Fire, so I clearly know everything about everything, dude.
I know.
But if you do a Google image search for Warhammers, you'll see that they have the hammer end, and then a regular framing hammer or something you would pound nails in with at home has a claw on the back end. A Warhammer typically has a spike on the back end. A lot of times we think of Thor's hammer or the Marvel movie version of Thor's hammer, because that's what's in our popular culture, is that double flat-sided hammer.
Yeah. So looking at it,
that's not typical of a Warhammer. Typically, you have a flat end for smashing, and then a clawed end for tearing apart doors or the sides of ships or whatever. It's kind of a Viking thing.
Yeah. So reading on his hammer, it's named Mahalanir, which translates to He Who Soars, because he named it after Hopper. And the back is like a wedged shape. So it's not really like a spike or an axe. It's kind of like that. Think of a wedge looking from the top down at it, with the thin end tapering off towards the back.
Right. I see it kind of as a triangle. instead of a spike. Like a typical Warhammer would have a spike, and this is more of a triangle.
Yeah. Which I'm going to save more on that for another podcast because it's a really cool weapon.
The fox marries the raven, and the trumpets of battle are blown. Who's the fox? Because we keep talking about the fox. Is that Matt?
That's Matt. The fox is Matt. Because he's got the signet ring. He's got the fox head medallion. The fox is Matt because he's always seen as like super clever with his battle strategy. We know he gets from, this kind of like reincarnation memory gain.
So ravens make me think about battle because they feed off of the dead bodies, they're carrion feeders. We've talked about that before. Is marrying the raven, is that maybe allegory or hidden meaning for embracing his war knowledge that he's been gifted with, that he kind of denies for so long because he doesn't want to be a hero? Is that maybe what that is alluding to?
I think it is.
I mean, tWoT, I think, might have been called, one of her titles has something to do with ravens, but I think this passage is about Matt finally wanting to be a title.
Yeah, because his title becomes Prince of the Ravens.
Right.
Let's see, what is it? There's something more. So the Shanshan Empire, Avienda, during her second trip to Ruidin, she sees the IL go into war with the Shanshan, and she also hears them referred to as the Raven Empire, which I think is the link with tWoT being the Raven.
She's a Raven, right?
Yeah, she's a Raven because she's part of what is also called the Raven Empire. Like I knew there was more to it with tWoT, but I couldn't remember because she was her final name is Fortuna Athim Devi Pendrag or Payendrag because he adds a AE in there to pull back from Arthur Pendragon.
Right.
But yeah, so if it's the Raven Empire and he marries the current Empress tWoT, then he's marrying the Raven. He's married basically into the leadership of the Raven Empire.
That's true. And I mean, that's what it means on the surface. But I don't know, maybe I was looking too hard for a hidden meaning.
Yeah.
Something under the surface. It could also
be a call. I think that could be another interpretation too. He's kind of married to battle.
But he doesn't want it at first, right?
Yeah, he doesn't want it. I mean, he wants the holes in his memory filled, and when they're filled, he remembers all of these historical battles and battle tactics, in which we see as like that actually needed to happen for him to, assist the dragon. Just like the Wolf King, as accepting his role as, who he is and carrying the hammer and, no longer refusing, or feeling so guilty about violence. Still doesn't like it, but he's less hesitant. I mean, obviously when he's faced, where he can kill Trollocs and Murdral and all.
Right.
And then of course, the fox marries the raven. We also see, Matt blows the horn of Valir.
Oh yeah. I had completely forgotten about that. Yeah. Although it's been said several times that the horn of Valir is not mentioned in the prophecies.
Yeah.
So, I mean, unless it's a hidden meaning that nobody has thought of before, which, I mean, it's possible.
Yeah, that's the way I took it, because with the link to Matt's already, obviously linked to the Raven Empire and linked to the Horn of Valir as the person that's blown it. Basically saying that as long as he's alive, he's the only one that can blow it.
Right.
And I believe he blows it again at the final battle too, doesn't he?
I'm not sure. I do know that at some point they discovered that although Matt is the only one who could blow it after he does, that the exception is Rand. That Rand can blow it whenever he wants, no matter who's blown it before, and it would work for him anyways.
Well, the only part I could just not be remembering that part, but is that So Matt, they follow the person who blows the horn unless the dragon is present, and because whenever they are at Falmy, they demand that the dragon banner be flown correctly and proudly, because that's the only way they can move forward.
Right.
So it says they come to the call of the horn, but they are bound to follow the banner and the dragon.
Right. The dragon reborn supersedes whoever blew the horn in the first place, is the point.
Yeah. And it does get blown at the last battle because Arthur tells Matt that they would never fight for the shadow. Arthur being, one of the heroes summoned back by the horn.
Yeah. So that's all the different passages of the Prophecies of the Dragon, or the Karaethon cycle, that we have available to us. There may be more. I'm sure that there are more, but we don't have them available. Robert Jordan didn't write them all out.
Yeah. And we're sorry for making this one a bit of a longer episode, but we wanted to get through the last half of this.
Yeah, we're pushing about an hour and 45 minutes already.
Yeah.
It might get trimmed down a little bit, but I'm not looking forward to editing this monster.
Yeah. I mean, if we really have to, it could be broken into two if we really need it to.
Well, yeah, I mean, we've already recorded it, so we might as well just put it all out. We're going to make signing off here pretty quick, though. Next time, we're going to talk about some of the other prophetic things that are adjacent to this. A lot of the other
like the other prophecies, the dreams, the viewings, the alpha and answers, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Different prophetic things that have been handed down over the years that are not the Prophecies of the Dragon. So they do exist. There are other things. This is not the only prophetic work out there. We are still collecting questions for people to answer when we talk about, or when we talk to the ladies from the White Tower later this month. We're going to talk to them. I think you got like a week or so now after this comes out. If you want to shoot us an email, it's Tower Podcast.
I think
it's Black Tower Pod. It's Black Tower Pod at Gmail. My brain is fried at this point. It's, it's 3:45 in the morning. So yeah, blacktowerpod at gmail.com. And our Twitter is at Tower Podcast. You can find us either place, or send us a direct message on Twitter, whatever. It's all good.
I think we're going to ask for those
anyways.
Yeah, I think we're going to ask for those questions by December 14th.
Yeah, that'd be the latest you could put them in, because of everybody's holiday schedules. We're going to record in the middle of December and then drop it the Friday after Christmas.
Yeah. Jep, you know where to find us. You know where to leave your questions, and we look forward to seeing them.
Yep. So for those of us here at the Black Tower, I'm Aaron.
And I'm Andrew.
And, have a happy holiday season.